Hello, good afternoon. Some of you have been asking me how we use genograms in sessions with clients. What's the use of genograms? How does that help us to do our work effectively and specifically to help clients gain insights into what's happening within either the family dynamics or just how they relate with each other, which is sometimes a reflection of what's been happening in their family of origin or family of love. That's how I refer to some of these. Today, I want us to walk through a little bit about what it means to use genograms. How does the doing look like? And maybe how we can practice gaining insights for ourselves as well as for our clients. And I lean heavily on Dr. Monica McGoldrick's work. So a lot of the things I will be sharing with you are insights that I gained from using her resources. But one of the things that made such a huge impact on me is that families repeat themselves. So what happens in one generation will often repeat itself in the next generation. What this means is that the same issues tend to be played out from one generation to another, though the actual behavior might take a variety of forms. And this is something that those who use Bowenian family systems will term as multi-generational transmission of family patterns. For those of you in the Pentecostal and the charismatic Christian groupings, you're probably going to say family curses. But for those of us who are therapists, it's not just the negative, it's also the positive. And what Bowen explained this multi-generational transmission is that he hypothesized that relationship patterns in previous generation provide implicit models for family functioning in the next generation. So it's important that as therapists, we explore such patterns of repetitions that happen in families as on a genogram so that it becomes one of our basic tools for assessment, okay? So what they term as let the calendar speak. So they suggest that there are possible connections between family events over time. And so as therapists, if we engage with clients in a way that helps us to scan the family system historically, we are able to assess previous life cycle transitions, patterns of illnesses, and earlier shifts in family relationships related to loss and other critical life changes. And so what the genogram also does is it places the present issues in the context of family evolutionary patterns. And so what is happening with the client right now, and how has the client's family historically handled situations that are similar to what the client is going through. And so when family members are questioned about the present situation in regard to themes or myths or rules and emotionally charged issues of previous generations, repetitive patterns often become very clear. And so you need to use reflective questioning in able to extract some of these things from what's happening with your client, okay? It's important because these factors provide the framework for hypothesizing about the current issues of a particular family. And as we go on, I may or may not share how the use of genograms with unique clients brought out amazing insights which led to their growth in therapy, okay? So for the outline, I want to tell you a little bit about genograms, what they mean, what they do, and then what we use these genograms for. This will probably be a 2 or 3 part video. Okay, so this is just the introduction. We also want to go through genogram symbols because some of you may have the software to do it, but many of you will do it in a free form version. So I want to show you how that happens. And then I will probably use an example and then we will do it. I believe in the doing. And then how some of these, how the doing of the genogram, especially with your clients in session, provides insight and healing. So let me give you a little bit of a background. Like I said earlier, I did a lot of my learning from Dr. McGoldrick's book, and she and two other authors did this beautiful book on genograms. So what's a genogram? A genogram is a modern version of a family tree that maps out more than just a person's ancestry. What it does again is it conveys who you belong to and the patterns of your family over several generations. It is by far the best way to explore and keep track of basic information about families from a systemic perspective. So when we use genograms, we can offer deeper insight about overt problems that people often get stuck in. Problems like anger or depression or anxiety or relationship cutoff or conflict. And so there are unique languages that sometimes we use in the use of genograms. Genograms can also indicate patterns of a family's relationship and functioning much more readily than written text or questionnaire. So we always do client notes when we finish working with clients. But what genogram does is it gives you a picture of what is happening. So the moment you see, it's like, oh, wow, this is interesting. The grandmother did this. The mother did it. The client is also doing it. And so if you're able to point these things out to the client, it gives them an aha moment that also leads a lot towards healing. What genograms do also is to record information about family members and their relationships over at least 3 generations. And so that's something that I always ask my students to do. Do a genogram for yourself, for your parents, and maybe your grandparents. Okay. And if you're married, I will probably let you do some for your children, especially for those of you who have either adolescent children or adult children. Some interesting things show up when you are able to track some of these things. Are you thinking about something that's been a family thorny thing over the last few generations because of the way I'm talking? Are you gaining some insight? Okay, let's go on. So genograms also display information graphically in a way that provides a quick gestalt of complex family patterns. This makes them a rich source of hypotheses about how clinical problems evolve in the context of family over time. Genograms can be an extremely useful tool for research on patterns, events, relationships, and sources of resilience in families over generations. The beautiful thing is, it's not just those of us in psychology who use genograms. Doctors, medical doctors also use genograms because it can help them track diseases over families. You know, human beings are inextricably interwoven into broader interactional systems, the most fundamental of which is, I gotta pause.